YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. After a few weeks of Z06 news and last week's video of my time at the Porsche Experience Center in Atlanta, I can probably tell that everyone is waiting for my next Z06 Deep Dive. So let's not keep everybody waiting. This week, I'm going to be doing an overview on the Z07 package. I'll be talking through what it includes, differences with the regular Z06, pros and cons, and then ending with my take on it, and if I plan to spec it on my Z06. So let's dive right in. So first, a little history. Traditionally, the Z07 package has been an options code for a package of add-ons for prior generation Corvette Z06s. The Z07 name actually pays homage to the name of a very limited run of C3 cars. Famously known for their off-road suspension, this package also included much more substantial brakes than the standard car. For the C3, or the third generation Corvette, only 45 cars were produced as Z07s. In more modern times, the C6 Z06 first introduced the Z07 as an add-on package. It was essentially the highest performance options available for the Z06 at that time. This package was then continued for both the C7 and now the C8 Z06s. So what is the Z07 package? Well, it consists of a few different things. At a high level, it includes changes to the aerodynamics of the car, suspension changes, tire changes, and brake changes. So let's take a look at this in a bit more detail. First, the most obvious changes are with the aerodynamics of the car, all in carbon fiber. You have the lip spoiler, the dive planes, the side skirts, underbody strakes, and then the pièce de résistance, that big carbon fiber spoiler in the back. While the standard Z06 makes 365 pounds of downforce at 186 miles an hour, these aero changes more than double it to 734 pounds of downforce at 186 miles an hour in a Z07 equipped car. Next, the Z07 car comes with a revised suspension. While the regular Z06 gets RPO, regular production option, FE6 suspension, the Z07 gets FE7 suspension. Now I can hear you thinking, but what does that actually mean, Fred? So for context, the suspension on the regular Z06 is 35% stiffer than on the Stingray Z51, and then the Z07 package dials that up even more to another 8% stiffer. Now the two main changes are an increase in spring rate and an increase in the anti-roll bar rate. Both cars have MagRide 4 as standard, however the Z07 also has a different calibration and tuning for the MagRide versus the regular Z06. Now one good thing that came out of this added stiffness is that apparently in MagRide 4.0 it has such a wide bandwidth for damping that touring mode is still able to make a dramatic difference in the comfort of either car, Z06 or Z07, for long drives or over deteriorated pavement. Now importantly, MagRide damping hardware, the tube diameter, the bleed holes, even the fluid is all unchanged between the two cars. The MagRide shocks can react so quickly also that no tuning changes were necessary when fitting the lighter carbon fiber wheels to the car. Up next, the tires. So the standard Z06 uses Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, and then the Z07 gets the much more aggressive Michelin Sport Cup 2R ZP tires, and specifically these tires are made exclusively for the C8 Z06. These are a pretty special tire. Per Motor Trend, they said these tires set an internal record at Michelin for the highest number of design iterations before the release of a tire. And that during the testing, the Corvette team found that at many tracks in a 12-lap session, the last lap was actually the fastest lap on these tires, which is the opposite of many other brands of performance tire. Now, while the dimensions of these tires are the same as the standard tires, there's actually a different air pressure for these specifically. Standard Z06 uses the Corvette standard of 30-30 front and rear pressures, while the Z07 gets 35 psi front and rear. And then for track use, Chevy actually recommends 24 psi cold for the Z07, and they're going to be announcing another recommended cold pressure for doing driving such as sustained Autobahn or long track like the Nürburgring type performance driving. Pretty interesting stuff, I think. And then lastly, the brakes. All Z07 equipped cars are going to come standard with carbon ceramic brakes, CCBs. If you haven't watched it, check out my deep dive on the brakes to help you decide what you might want to get for your own spec. I'll link to that video in the description below. The standard Z06 comes with iron rotors of 14.6 inches in front and 15 in the back. Yeah, larger in the back. Weird, I know. The CCBs, however, set this right, and they make everything bigger, with 15.7 inches in the front and 15.4s in the back. It's also worth noting that the CCBs are a standalone option for any Z06, so you can get them even if you're not interested in the Z07 package. I should also mention that the Z07 package is required as a prerequisite if you want to get the carbon fiber wheels from Carbon Revolution. If you're on the fence about the wheels, I also did an in-depth video about that, which I'll also link in the description below. Now, one quick point to mention about speccing the carbon fiber wheels is that the internal damping of the electric power steering does get revised, as does the ABS control strategy. This means that you shouldn't put them on a car without the proper tuning from GM, though I don't know if they'll be offering that as a separate thing that you can upgrade to later for non-Z07 cars. Just thought that was worth mentioning. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention here is price. We still don't have the pricing for the Z06 yet, much less the Z07 package. However, for the C7 Z06, the Z07 package costs about $8,000. At this point, it's really hard to say if the price will be in the same neighborhood of like $8,000 to $10,000, or if it's going to be somewhat higher, like $15,000. Knowing that Corvette does try to keep their prices more or less in line with the past though, my guess would be on the lower end of that spectrum. However, that is just a guess on my part. Alright, so now that we know what the Z07 package is, what are the pros and what are the cons? Let's go through the pros first. The first is that this is the best track configuration for the car. If you plan to track heavily or you want to eke out the best possible performance for the car, this seems like a no-brainer. The car will be lighter, it'll handle better, and it's going to get better lap times. Next, though maybe expensive, it is likely to be a deal for what you get. Just doing my homework for this video and looking at what you get as well as traditional pricing, it seems to me that the Z07 package, around the $8,000 to $10,000 mark, you're really going to be getting a deal. CCBs on their own can approach that price, and you're getting a lot of significant carbon fiber bodywork and racetrack tires. For the money, this seems like a no-brainer as long as Chevy doesn't surprise us on the pricing. Now let's do the Z07 package cons. First is the firmer ride. I strongly suspect that most Z06 buyers are not going to be heavily tracking their cars. Even myself, who does a handful of events per year, I wouldn't consider myself to be a frequent track use driver. Without driving the cars, it is hard to say, but from a few videos on YouTube from ride-alongs, there are comments about the suspension and the ride being quite firm for the Z07. Now for some, that might be a plus, but for many, that may also be a con. Next is tire life. The Z07 package comes with some of the stickiest tires this side of a dedicated racing slick. However, this also means that they don't last nearly as long as the standard tires. I've already talked with a bunch of viewers who plan to get the Z07 package, and most of them, right in the same sentence, say that they are planning to also get a second set of wheels for road use and save those Cup 2Rs for the track. Up next is price. Now, I just said above that I think the Z07 package is likely to be a deal, as it has traditionally been. However, for people looking to stick to a budget, $8,000 to $10,000, hopefully, is a moderate bump in price that could really knock a sub-$100,000 car up into the $100,000 range. So for those that are watching their build prices closely, I think this is one of the options that might get nixed for those who are really trying to set a max price that they're comfortable with for building the car. Now, unlike some of my other deep dives, there really aren't a lot of other pros and cons between it. The pricing is fairly cut and dried, and the features and the things you get for the Z07 package are fairly well defined. What this means is this really just comes down to, are those things worth the money that are being asked for? There aren't a lot of other additional things to consider. There isn't additional wear and tear on the car, those kind of things. So, subjectives. So now that we're through the pros and cons, there is one subjective quality, and that's the looks. Some people want the package strictly for the aesthetics changes to the car, or to sum it up, they like the big wing. Others like the sleeker, more streamlined look of the low spoiler, and I think that's one of those decisions that's best left up to everyone individually, and you can't really say if one is better than the other. Alright, so Fred's take. What's my take on this? To be honest, when I first saw the car, I really wanted the big wing. Then upon seeing all the spy photos and eventually seeing the car in person, I started leaning towards the low wing. Ultimately though, as with my other deep dives, I'm a function over form person for the most part, and I had to look at what I plan to do with the car. I plan to do lots of long drives up in the mountains, on back roads, and away from the highways. I also plan to do autocrosses, car control clinics, drifting, and of course some track days. That said, I think I'm a long way away from my ability level being anywhere where I can really leverage the full performance that the Z07 package offers. Combine that with wanting to do some road trips with my wife in comfort, and the harsher ride seems a little too much of a compromise for me. Also, if I get to the point where my ability lines up with the car, I'm pretty sure that there will be a C9 or a C10 right around the corner. So for me, it's going to be the regular Z06 without the Z07 package, though I gotta say I do really love the big wing. Now for those keeping score at home, here's my current spec. Seats, GT2, wheels, forged alloys, brakes, carbon ceramics, style, hardtop convertible all the way, Z07 package, no, and then trim level, I'm going to cover that soon. So I'm super excited for the pricing to come out, production to start, and to start seeing these things on the road by late summer. I still have probably 2 to 3 years to wait, so I've got plenty of time to decide, but I'm really excited, as I'm sure all of you are. I also wanted to take a minute to thank everybody for their feedback on my video about the Porsche Experience Center, as well as everybody who's waiting for me to reply in the comments. I got back from both of my trips, and I had well over 150 comments that I needed to reply to. I'm still working my way through them, but I will respond to all of them, so thank you for your patience on that. So thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, Fred out!